Hello, language enthusiasts, and welcome to The Language Worker, a space to talk about the people involved in the language business in a broad sense. I'm interested in finding out how their training, work experience, and their passion for languages has shaped our guests' professional and, of course, personal lives. Join me on this journey to explore the multiple and unpredictable paths one can follow when we are involved in the magical world of languages. When I invited Isabelle to come on the podcast as a guest, I didn't know much about her. I basically knew that she had done some projects that entailed transcreating songs. However, our conversation took us in many unexpected directions, and we had an amazing conversation that expanded my mind and gave me a lot of new perspectives on how to work with music. Isabelle is a translator and a pronunciation teacher, and she's extremely knowledgeable and full of surprises. I'm sure this conversation will surprise you too.
Oh my God, I'm so excited today because I have Isabelle. I will ask her to pronounce her name properly in a minute. Since, as I already told her, my French is totally passive. My French doesn't speak, only listens and reads. But I'm just so happy to have Isabelle here because she has been doing amazing things. But I'll try not to talk too much about it yet. So I will just ask you to introduce yourself briefly and just pronounce your name in your beautiful French.
Okay. Thank you, Rita, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and have this conversation with you. So my name is Isabelle Cottenet with a silent T in the end. And no diphthongs, right? So Isabelle Cottenet, and I'm a translator and French pronunciation.
Wow. It's just I cannot listen to when you finish your sentences. It's a bit cut off, I think.
Oh, okay. So let me know. Shall I try with my new microphone to maybe louder? If I turn it
that sounds
louder,
good. Yeah,
is it better?
Okay. Let's continue.
Okay. Yes.
Then you were talking about yourself a little bit.
So yes, I'm a translator and French pronunciation coach. And I think we connected when you saw one of my posts on what to know when you translate songs, because it is it's quite unusual. This is not something I do on a regular basis, but it's something which blends in the different aspects in my life, which are very important, languages and music.
So I totally hear you. I'm a diehard Madonna fan. I always have a Madonna reference somewhere. So this is exactly how I see the world. The connection between languages and music. This is exactly what rules my life too. So I was like instantly drawn to your post and to you. And I was like, oh my God, this is like intriguing. Let's talk about it because I totally get it. And I've also been involved in translating songs. So okay, but before we get into that, I was looking at your profile when I told you. So you've done a lot, you've studied a lot, you have an MBA, you have been in businesses, you have been everywhere.
That was a long time ago.
But then I saw that you had been an interpreter for the Winter Olympic Games. So that seems to be like your first, at least in whatever you give us in your profile, your first baptism, let's say that. That's to the language work most specifically.
How
was that experience?
Oh wow, it was just mind-blowing. It was a founding experience because actually I was studying studying translation and which is one well-known translating studies school in Paris. And it was in 1992. So
when you said the date, we couldn't hear it. The sound was not
there. Okay. So here.
Maybe.
It was in 1992. Can you hear me better? Yeah.
Perfect.
Last century. Yes. Long time ago. So it was an opportunity through school because we had a lady who was in charge of the relationships with companies and the school. And since it was the year of the Winter Olympics in the French Alps, she suggested that the students in the 3rd and 4th year be a part of event. And so there were opportunities to be hostesses, trilingual hostesses, or interpreters. And I was lucky enough to be chosen, to be selected to work on the in a winter resort called Les Arcs, which is in the French Alps, where the speed skiing competition took place. And my role was to interpret during the race committees every day after the races and on the slopes.
So, so you were there where everything happened.
Yeah, at the start, if the races had any questions or needed to communicate with the organizing staff. So I would ride on a snowmobile with one of the I was very young at the time. That was just crazy because it was crazy too, because one of my dreams at the time was to work in the mountains. I was, still am, but less, a big mountain lover. I love hiking, skiing, lots of winter sports. And I am not originally from the mountain, from the Côte d'Azur, the French Riviera. So I grew up in Nice. Yeah, very. We have mountains there, but nothing compared to the northern French Alps. So when this opportunity came, I took it, and it was fabulous. I did not become an interpreter afterwards, but it was a great experience, and it was founding because that was my entry gate. That was my access point for my first real job when I finished studying. So after studying translation, I did an MBA, like you said. I will not dwell on that, okay? But at the end of this, MBA, we had to do an internship. So I did that internship in the sales department of an accommodation hotel and apartment rental company, which was very well known. So at the end of my internship, there was a lovely lady who asked me, "What do you know?" I said, "I want to go to the mountains."
You're already disappearing again. So there's something about the microphone. Either
you know what? I'm gonna turn it off, and we are going to just do it through the computer. I still need
no sound now. 1 second. Sound will come back very soon.
Yeah.
Here you go. Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah, this is perfect. Okay.
Yeah. We'll go low tech. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Okay, so yes, she asked me what I wanted to do after that internship. I said, I want to work in the mountains. What do you want to do in the mountains? And she said, okay, maybe you should meet this person. She is in Paris. This internship was in Paris, actually, at the headquarters of this big company. I said, you should go and meet that person because she is working in an international organization which is in charge of promoting French resorts on foreign markets. So to Japanese, Russian, American tour operators. So she is hiring an assistant because she is leaving her job in Paris to go and work in the mountains. To meet her. So we had a wonderful job interview, which lasted 2 hours. And
I know how that goes.
With people, that was just great. And she had to submit my application to a board with the mayor, the director of the tourist board, the director of the hotel federation of that resort. So very formal. she came back to me a few days after and she said, okay, you're on for an interview up there in the mountains with a whole board.
You were like, oh no, I really hate the mountains.
Oh, you do? And you said, okay, the interview is at 9 a.m. at the hotel where you'll be staying. The whole group will be coming. We'll have breakfast together, and that will be the interview. Okay, I was 23 at the time, so it was quite impressive. So the interview went well. I was hired, and I stayed in Val d'Isère because that was the name of the resort for 5 years, and worked with this wonderful lady, Carole. I was her assistant, and it was just great life. It was a great life because it was an international ski resort. Lots of British people, so lots of opportunities to speak English. One aspect of the job was to go abroad and take part in trade fairs to promote the resort, to tour operators and travel agents, to organize events in the resort and liaise with the travel agents who couldn't speak French. Well, it was just a great, fabulous first experience. But why was I hired? Because I was not from the valley, so I was a foreigner, because in the mountains, when you're not from the valley, you are a foreigner. I was a real foreigner. I learned afterwards that one of the people who worked with the mayor was actually the man who rode the snowmobile when I was working as a volunteer in the Olympics in another resort.
No.
So he was able to vouch for me. He'd seen me work and said, yes, she's okay. She's okay.
I love this. I love it. I was not expecting that, but
I didn't write about it on LinkedIn, but yes, that's how it happened.
Because I have a section that I wanted to create, but then it's not so easy. That it's interesting stories like that. So I love gathering them, and I'd love to do like some sort of a special just with people who have these amazing stories about work, right? About language work. And this is a story about language work. So you're invited to that too.
Things happen when you don't necessarily expect them to.
I know.
So that was the story of the Olympic Games and Val d'Isère, where I stayed 5 years.
There's a strange, mysterious connection.
Yeah.
That was worked by the universe, right?
Absolutely, the stars were aligned.
So then what happened? But you weren't working, you didn't have a translation job, let's say that. Of course, languages, I can only imagine, were part of your daily work and daily job, and everything that you did was probably most of it not even in French, because you had to be in international environments. Then what happened that you decided to become a freelance translator? How did that happen, from that kind of lifestyle to that?
Yeah,
being all over the place, from working by yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, from going skiing between noon, I mean, during my lunch break, to locking myself in an office in front of my computer the whole day long. No, what happened was a big change. No, the thing is, that's why the road, well, the way was a bit winding. It was a long and winding road.
Yes.
I studied translation, but after my studies, I didn't want to become a translator yet. I felt I needed to have experience, to gain experience in other fields. And so that's why I pursued my studies with this MBA. And so Val d'Isère, not a translator. When I left Val d'Isère, I went back to the south of France in like the French Silicon Valley. It's called Sophia Antipolis, so lots of tech companies, and I found a job there, 2 jobs there. Still not a translator in those jobs. I was the personal assistant to the manager of a startup, which was very good experience, but not a translator. And after 10 years working not as a translator, I thought, I want to get back to it. Now's the time. Now's the time, because I want to see for real what I've done the whole day. Because when you organize, coordinate, and liaise with people, prepare reports and presentations, for me, it was a bit vain in the end. I mean, the assistant job, I mean, I'd seen all there was to see about it. After 10 years, I needed to move on to something else, obviously. So the startup was raised funds, and they, like any startup, they were looking for another buyer, for a company to buy them. Yeah. And that's when they started to lay off people, or to suggest, oh, if you want to go, we can help you go. So I said, yeah, I want to go. I want to set my business. So I left, and that was in 2002. And I've been a translator ever since.
Oh my God.
Et voila.
So were they like your customers, like in the same startup? Did you start working with them, or what happened in that very first approach of being a business owner, going into a job you had never done, at least for full time? It was part of your job, but you've never had been working as such, right? With that new title, freelance translator, business owner, all of that stuff. I can only imagine the shock.
It was. And at that time, it was very different from today. I mean, internet was just in its infancy. We didn't have online terminology banks. I remember being given a CD-ROM with Termion, you know, the Quebec terminology bank. So it was prehistory. I'm a dinosaur. I mean, for the younger generation, I'm a dinosaur.
Oh, don't say that, because I was already, you know, pretty much on the market in 2002. I was already out there.
Yeah. But I learned everything from scratch. And I must say, one thing is still the same today, is that I tried to connect with other translators. It was not as easy, but we, when I was working in the startup, we used quotes. We called on the services of a translator to translate French into English, because I only translated the other direction. And so I reached out to her and asked her how she worked.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. So she was kind enough to, I mean, she was very kind to spend some time explaining her work, the tools she used. She said, oh, you have to get Trados. So I printed out the whole user guide, and I had a big binder.
Right.
Because there were no videos to teach us how to use Trados. I don't know how you learned Trados or another cat tool.
It was a bit later than that, and because when I first started working, I worked on site, so I didn't have my own software. I worked at people's software.
Yes,
so I only bought my first cat tools in 2010.
Okay, so they had the time to debug all the problems.
Yes, and I was used to other cat tools, so they were custom made for those clients. But so I guess the one that I used the most was the one that they had for Apple. So that's where I worked first.
Yes, I saw that on your profile. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can only imagine how amazing it was for you to all of a sudden to get into this new groove, right?
I had to learn everything, because most of my colleagues or friends from school had gone to work in translation agencies in London, for instance, as their first job, because they wanted to be translators, they wanted to be interpreters, and I didn't really know what I wanted, so that's why I took another road. But I learned everything from scratch, and yes, the startup gave me a first job, but I was not comfortable with it because it was translating in the other direction, and this is not something I do. So I had someone to proofread my work. And then the platform which helped me find my first clients was Prose.com, which still exists.
Yes.
And it's still there. And I got a really nice contract working for British Airways. So yes, I translated their website for many, many months. I was invited to take part in meetings in Paris, so I flew to Paris.
Girl.
That was a cool first project.
So you are a name dropper, just like me. I hear you. I told you.
Yeah. So, and then British Airways, then other air flight, companies, flying companies, okay, like Flybe and other low-cost companies. And then I switched to working on tech documents because I had seen a lot of the tech stuff in the startup, because it was a secure, well, it built appliances and security appliances. Well, I won't go into details, but so I had
technical, full-blown technical.
Yeah, you worked in Apple, so you saw from the inside how a tech company works.
Yes, I guess. I mean, there was a full-blown translation department or localization department already at that stage. So it's not like I was with everybody else. So there, when I worked on site, it was just people who were doing the same as me. So I didn't see the ins and outs.
Okay.
It was already a huge thing when I got there. Trust me.
It was our startup was small in the beginning, then it grew big and then really small.
The iPhone was already out when I went there, so that means that it was already, as the status of the company is the same as today. So I was not there while things were happening. So no, I didn't see anything except for Steve Jobs, who had lunch.
You saw Steve Jobs?
Right, because he was having lunch. The first time that I had lunch there, he was having lunch on a nearby table. So everybody was like, "That's him," and I was like, "Oh, there he is." That's it.
Name dropping again.
Because I was in California, and when you live in California, this is what you live for. Because I mean, if you haven't seen anyone, where have you been, right? So it's true that I saw a lot of famous people. So it's when I talk about the States, I'll immediately start name dropping. But I told you that it's a bit of a problem of mine. But it happens when you work for big companies, or it's just normal that we talk about it. That's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
So then what happened? How did it evolve?
How did it evolve? To be honest, I kind of, what's the English expression for that? I kind of didn't do much for 20 years because I didn't need to prospect to find prospects and clients. They came to me by word of mouth. I worked with the big translation agencies, and when a project manager changed and went to work in another agency, he would, still call on us. So it worked just like this for 20 years. And that was enough for me. I didn't think of growing or diversifying or doing anything. The work came in. But then I think, when did it start changing? And I got my first direct clients, and that was another way of working. And I really enjoy working with direct clients because the relationship is different. Your role is different too. And the rates are different too.
Everything is different, it's true.
Yeah. And then it was the pandemic. And then that's when it was a very good year business-wise, because I had work to do, but I felt I needed to diversify, do something else. And there was something that was at the back of my mind, is how can I find a way to mix music and languages? How do I build this bridge and turn it into a new thing, a new activity? And the first idea was, that was one trigger. The second was I was starting to have pain in my shoulder from the long hours working in front of my computer. And working on written documents wasn't enough anymore. I needed to get back to the communication, connection with people. I guess the pandemic and the lockdowns had a role in that, played a role in that. So with all these questions, I felt I really needed to think about it seriously. And so I saw people going into SEO writing or copywriting, content writing. And I thought, yeah, that's fine, but it's still writing. It's still not the spoken language. And then I thought, I used to be a big fan of The Voice, American Idol.
I watch everything. I watch all of those. Yeah, for sure.
These talent shows, really.
You're talking about it as if they were over, but they're all there.
I know, but it has changed. I think it has slightly.
Yeah, but I still watch it because I cannot help it.
Yeah, I love discovering new voices. I know you love voices. You're sensitive about this. I mean, you pay attention to voices.
Yes, I think about it a lot. Let's say that.
Yeah. And since I do a lot of music on the side too, I play the piano and I sing in the band.
Wait a minute. She wasn't just translating all the time in her computer. She was also, there were other activities you were doing while sitting down, right?
Yeah. I needed that. I needed to get out of the office and be with people, and singing and playing music with other people is a great way of doing that. And so that's why I was thinking, how can I blend everything in? And so I've been taking singing lessons for ages. And the thing is, I perceive that in the things that singing teachers or vocal coaches teach us, when they tell us, oh, you can change that sound a little bit, you can change your U sound in you can change the E sound into a U when you reach a high pitch, to make it sound less cringy and more round. So these are little things that singers use to tweak their sound and make it both comfortable for their voice and pleasant for the listeners. So I've been experimenting on these things, because when I go in a rehearsal with my band, we mostly sing.
With my band? You have a band?
Yeah, I have a band.
What shall we talk about in this conversation? I'm just like all over the place. I'm like, what? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that.
Well, nothing like Madonna.
Well, nothing is like Madonna, so you don't have to say it.
No, I mean, we do that as amateurs. We gather every week, and we play in a few cafes or bars.
Oh,
but
you actually play to the public. Oh my God, that's insane. That's insane.
Yeah, for an introvert, that's quite a challenge.
I guess an introvert, it's not something that I would consider that you are, but maybe you consider yourself it.
Yes, I am. So I was trying, to take the things that I'd learned through music, with music, and say, well, there must be a connection. So back to The Voice, when I would listen to French singers sing in English.
You would immediately see that they were French, because you could recognize the accent, of course.
Yes, I mean, it's not a problem per se, but it's a problem when it just harms the performance and hinders the message. I mean, the message is not delivered as it should be. And the listeners, me as a listener, I would just focus on the things that were not right and forget about the meaning, about the voice. So I thought,
let's say you have a very educated ear. It's normal that you focus on things in a different way.
Maybe that played a part.
Yes.
So I thought, maybe there's something to do with that. Maybe I can help French singers improve their pronunciation in their singing. I wouldn't do it.
You work with singers. That's something I didn't know.
Wait.
Wait.
That was the initial idea. So I thought, yes, I'm going to do that. Help French singers improve their pronunciation in English when they sing. So I talked about it to my friends. I said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't know if there was a market. I didn't know if it was feasible. I didn't have any connections in the business. So a few weeks after telling a good friend of mine about this idea, she called me back and she said, I spoke to my niece's mother-in-law, who is in Australia, And she's learning French because for family reasons, but she's not satisfied because when she speaks French, people do not understand her. And when I told her about you, she said, "Oh, Isabelle sings, so she must know about prosody. So I would like to meet her and maybe work with her." So my friend connected us, and I didn't know much about prosody in the theory of prosody. So I looked into that. I told this lovely lady, "Okay, in 6 weeks' time, let me get back to you and we'll start working." So I looked at many things, I read many things, and we started working together.
So what is that concept, really?
So the concept was to use songs as a teaching material to help her improve her pronunciation in her speech.
But in this case, in French.
In French, yes. I don't teach English. So it was, yes, the other way around. And
exactly.
That's what I said. Yeah, that's what I said to my friend. "But I told you I want to help them with their English." Said, "Yeah, but it's the same." Not quite. But anyway, so this lady was my first client, and so we worked for a few months together. And so prosody basically is working also not only on the sounds, so the sounds that are not correctly pronounced, but also on the intonations, on the rhythm, on the stressed patterns, on the pauses you make when you speak. So it's all what we call suprasegmental aspects. That's the smart word for it.
The correct terminology.
Yes, but as you have a background, it's a big background in linguistics, so I thought I should use the right word.
Don't worry about it. Pretend I'm not here.
So, and singing makes this possible. And so I backed my intuition with lots of readings of scientific articles on that. And I found very interesting articles written by a singing teacher for opera singers, who was also a phonetics teacher in a French university. And he wrote many papers on the subject, how songs can be useful in language teaching for pronunciation, because it helps to train the ear, because the pitches are in a wider range than the spoken voice. So when you have difficulties hearing the pitches in the spoken voice, maybe you can start with a song. It's good for the rhythm because you can clap with your hands. So it covers, well, it's a very useful and relevant tool. And I was happy to read that someone as
qualified
as this professor had written about this and confirmed what I felt. So I digged further into that.
Wow.
And that's how the idea emerged.
Wow.
And, so I've been, well, I had to train, obviously. So I attended an online course on how to correct the phonetics, the pronunciation of foreign learners. I'm at the beginning of this journey still, because I feel that there is still so much to discover in this field. And so today I teach non-native speakers to improve their pronunciation, but I also have got a singer who needs to improve her pronunciation when she sings in French, but opera. She's an opera singer.
Oh my God, I love it.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating because the diction is completely different. And so she contacted me through a musician forum on Facebook. And we did a few courses online. She's in the States. So we did a few courses. She sent me the music sheets and we worked on those. And she already speaks French. So this is a big acid. I mean, it's a big advantage for her. She already speaks very good French, but she had trouble with some of the sounds. And when the problem is that in opera singing, it's important to take care of the voice. So you cannot ask an opera singer to just, okay, put the sound forward. Yeah, you have to know that if you do that, this creates, this has an impact on the voice quality. So it's really a fine balancing of the work on the sound that the singers do and on the clarity of their singing, because people now in the audience want to understand what the lyrics mean. And this beautiful and smart and great opera singer wanted to really do some fine-tuning, really fine-tuning. For example, in English, you have the dental T's and D's, which are clearer. And when you sing in French, and if the T's and D's are too crisp, you notice that, and you have to make them soft. And like there's a word which is that you find in many operas. It's cœur, cuore, the heart, and corps is corpus, the body. So the E and the O are quite close when you place them in the mouth. And when you sing them on high pitches, you really have to give precise directions on where to place the sound to produce the right word. So that was fascinating. I loved it.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, I know. I can only imagine how amazing it has been for you. But in the midst of all this, the reason why I even invited you to talk to me on the podcast, or what called my attention, the reason is because you are fascinating, obviously, but what called my attention was this song, the transcreation process that you talked about and all of that. So you were saying that you were doing your technical translations and all of that, but then I can only imagine that they were of a wide variety of subjects. I know exactly how it goes. And then, of course, I have done it too. So I have done songs that have appeared in real life.
Oh, tell us about
movies.
Those.
No, I won't. Because I can't. But yeah, that's true. So I was asked to work on a few songs, and then one of my versions was actually chosen to be in this specific movie. So it's insane to listen to a character sing your words. Of course, it's just insane. So I know how that feels, and I've done it also for other people. I worked for a music company for a while, and there was a moment where the owner of the company, he's American, he's a singer, and he wrote 2 songs that needed to be sung by Brazilian very popular musicians. So I had to create the versions too. So I know in other occasions too, even for friends to understand, friends in the music business needed to understand lyrics from one language to the other. So I have done it a lot, and I've thought about it a lot, and I have been thinking about all of that because of my Madonna history, right? It's 35 years of thinking of Madonna songs. So I use them for everything, including, exercises of translation and all of that stuff. So I kind of was fascinated by that because I do that too, and I absolutely love it. And it's something I could do. I'd love to do it on a weekly basis, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Because when it's real, it's totally different. I remember when I was working on those songs for the movie, that it was like, I would wake up already thinking about that. And all of a sudden I would just sit down and then just tweak. But the first version would come to me like, whoom.
Oh, nice.
After knowing the song really, really well, because they were unknown to me. So it was just unbelievable. And it was actually very comedic. So the content was pretty complicated with words that had to be really thought about, because, there was a bit of a poop involved and things like that. Because it's actually an animation movie. It's animation movie. So
but
think about
was it like did you have to recreate from
From the English version. Yeah, from the English version.
But to keep the same meaning, the same message, the same
idea.
Yes,
because it was a movie and you could see the images, right? So I had access to all that to create the version, and that was absolutely amazing. So the other times were a bit more informal, or they were just for the song itself, and I was there with the person who had written the song, things like that. But that time I was just contacted by one of those big movie companies and studios that I used to work for, because I did a lot of subtitling, QA, and all of that on site for subtitles, because I lived right there in Hollywood, right? So I used to go on site and do a lot of that. So one of those times, it was that, right? They asked me to transcreate 2 of the songs in the animation movie, and I did it. So one of them was picked up, the other one wasn't. And of course, I already felt much more confident about the one that was picked up, but just to hear it back, it's just an amazing experience.
The voice of the chosen singer. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a fascinating world. And there's so much more that comes into play when you translate or transcreate a song than just the words. That's
exactly
what I'm writing about. It's the rhythm of the words, the music of the words, it has to sound natural in the target language. And further to that post, I had a very interesting discussion online with a fellow translator who pointed out a singer, a Spanish singer. I don't remember the name. Sorry, I would have to look him up. But who sings in French and in Spanish. So I do not speak Spanish.
Right.
I listened to both versions, and the only thing I listened to was the music of the words and the emotion. And the thing was, I found that the Spanish version was really emotional, and he conveyed different things in his voice. Then the French version, he had a perfect accent, so nothing to say about that. It was just flawless, but it was off balance. The important words were not on the stressed, on the beats, on the right beats. It was the smaller words, like the connecting words, and et, ou, de, the smaller words, to link the parts of the speech, which were on the beats. So I couldn't really understand the meaning because of this arrhythmic. Could you say that?
Wow. No, arrhythmy, I would say.
Yeah, it was not, the rhythm was not right. So I don't know what the word would be, but anyway, so that's one aspect that needs to be taken into account. And also, as you said, you had access to the images, to the
visuals, for sure.
Visuals. So that's essential. And what I wrote in that post was that you also have to have access to know the singer, his background, what he wants to say, his style. Because if you're just sent the lyrics and is it a rap? Is it a love song?
Of course, just the lyrics won't cut it, because then
and the music and the time that I got this request, I didn't have access to the music, so it made no sense for me to work in a rush with no music, no brief. No, like for any transcreation.
Yeah, Madonna actually has it before the Evita time. Every time I say that Madonna has a full-blown song in Spanish, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, from the Evita time." No, in the Evita time, she had one that had the chorus in Spanish. Okay, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, in like a techno version. Anyway, that's one. It's like that, but she has a full-blown song in Spanish. Like it's an exact version. Well, not an exact version, but it's exactly the same song, but sung in Spanish by her. And it's called You'll See in English, and then in Spanish it's called Verás. It's actually very close, and it works really, really well, because I think that the person who did it really had a lot of knowledge on both the original song and also Madonna's voice and style, and that she cannot reach high in certain circumstances, and all of that was taken into consideration. So I find it fascinating. I'll send it to you, because I think it's just a very successful thing to do. And I think that it's very beneficial for singers to actually venture into singing their own songs unless it's something that they cannot even imagine, because people have different relationships with these subjects, obviously. But I would find it super interesting to see how people would sing the same song, their song, but themselves. Must be absolutely fascinating.
Well, there have been some, because I'm thinking of a French singer. Well, she's old now, but she was one of my heroes because she's a singer and piano player. She's called Véronique Sanson. So she was very famous in the 70s and the 80s. And I discovered recently that she has translated some of her songs in English, German, Italian, and Spanish.
Herself, you think, or was it with other people involved?
No, well, for English, it may have been herself because she lived in California for a while. She had a love story with a very famous American guitar player. So she speaks fluently. But I listened to the different versions, and she has a very good accent in all languages because she's a really good musician. And it's really interesting to listen to the different versions sung by the author.
Yep.
And I discovered that there was a song, one of these songs that I would need to find the references, and I can send them later to you if you want. One of the songs had two versions in English, one that she sung and another one which was a cover, but also with different lyrics, but the same melody. I think it was, I don't want to be mistaken, with Shirley Bassey or... So I'll look this up and maybe I'll send those references for people who...
But do you have this? I remember in Portugal, we had this trend probably by the late 80s, I would say. The song that I can immediately think about, the one is, the version is not so good, but the person is so popular. It was I Just Called to Say I Love You.
Yes.
There is a
Portuguese,
Stevie Wonder. There is a Portuguese version, and the man is really well known. He's one of our most well known singers. But it's just so funny the way that they did it, because from Portuguese to English, from English to Portuguese is such a huge difference in metrics. So in order to fit all of that and make a popular song the way they had to do it, so I love focusing on these little details. Do you have this? I'm sure you did. You had this trend in French
in the 70s.
But it was, yes, probably 70s, 80s. Yeah.
70s, the French singers from the Yeye generation, they imported, well, they copied.
They made versions, right? That's what it is.
Yes. So they took songs that were popular in the United States and adapted them in French. And there were also some cases where it was the other way around, like My Way actually is an adaptation of a French song called Comme d'habitude.
I have listened to that recently. I have to say.
You have listened to it?
Yes, I knew it existed.
Nothing to do one with another. I mean, they're very different stories, very different voices, very different arrangements, but the original is French, so it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, so for some reason, I came across that information recently, not so long ago. So that's really interesting. So I see that both of us focus on really similar things because our interest in music, of course, I cannot compare with you because you are a musician, which I'm not. But I have to say that I'm one of these people who sings every day, and I always say that to my mentoring people because I'm a mentor for English, right? I use songs all the time. And one of the things that I do is I talk and sing into the microphone with headphones on to listen to myself. So I have a lot of people be like, oh, I couldn't bear listening to myself, hearing myself back, all of that. But this is what I do. I do it every day. I do it on a regular basis. If I have that gear near me, today is not the case, but usually I record with the other microphone, and that's what happens. So the headphones are plugged into the microphone, and I listen to myself singing and talking and all of that because I like listening with a real with a real focus what I'm doing and what I say and why I do it and why I pronounce it the way or that way. Because being a Madonna fan from super early age, I was 10 when I vowed to be Madonna fan forever. So that I've always done that because I wanted to get my pronunciation as good as I could, right? And this is the technique. the technique that I found at an early age to actually keep on doing it. And I believe that it works. So I keep on doing
it. It is so important to listen to yourself when you learn the language. And because you have to really get to know your voice, you have to make peace with it. Because I know that when I listened to the first recordings we did with our small bands, I was, oh, no.
Were you shocked? Did you not have that relationship with your voice?
Yeah. Why? Because I love dark voices, dark sound voices.
And you don't have one.
No, I have a light voice, a soprano voice in classical, and I love blues music. I love soul music. So I've learned to use effects. You can put effects just like on the microphone when it works. You can use effects to produce the same intention, even if your voice doesn't have the same color. But yeah, when I listened to my voice, I thought, oh, no. And I could hear all the mistakes. So that applies to singing voice and also to speaking voice. So that's one of the things I keep repeating in my posts for people who want to practice their spoken language is repeat, shadow, whatever, but record yourself and listen to yourself because you are the best judge and you'll be able to make adjustments. So it worked with you.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I do it all the time. I'm a fan of that self indulging technique. Sometimes I feel like a bit of a narcissist for wanting to hear
voice narcissist.
But this is it. I have a very strong connection to anything that comes out of my mouth.
You need to sing. You need to.
I do. I sing a lot, but not for other people, obviously, but for myself. And it really makes me happy, I have to say.
You have to go on stage, obviously. It would fit your personality.
Why? No. It's totally fine. I sing a lot of mantras too. So that's the songs for me, the music that I hear are very, very different. Either my Madonna stuff that's very pop and very, and then I also have my mantras in, a lot of mantras in Latin, in Sanskrit, in Tibetan. So I love that. And I love to tweak a little bit of my pronunciation here and there in that circumstance too. So for me, this is all one thing. This is all work. This is all life. This is music. This is voice. This is, pronunciation. All of this is just one thing for me. I mean, I love phonetics. And of course, I've also studied phonetics and I love it. I've done, it's just unbelievable. The things that can come out of our mouths and the fact that we connect with our voice is such an important step of knowledge, and it will help you throughout everything that you need to do in life. This is the way I see it.
It does, because it's a shame. I think it's a shame when people have studied languages for so long and they have massive knowledge, they mastered the grammar, they have vocabulary that I wish I had because I still have to search for my words. It's not gonna get better, but anyway. And they don't feel comfortable and confident speaking, and these are the people I try to help because that was one of the things that made me want to work on pronunciation is to help also these people feel more confident about their voice in French. And this makes me think of something that you said before we started the recording about the French language, which I hear some people often say, in French, I cannot express my personality.
That's me for sure. Yeah, that's why I say that. I told you, it's my silent language. It's like, because I have no idea, to be honest. And I think because of all this, I'm thinking, so I should just start doing what I did for everything else. I will sing into the microphone in French. So I'll be waiting for you to send me a few links of songs that I could. One of the things that, I actually know quite a few songs in French from Celine Dion because I think she is a very different artist when she sings in English and when she sings in French. So I will not. I know a few songs in English too, because I do. They just stick.
Yeah.
But the truth is that I think that her live performances in French and all of that are just amazing. And we have this CD at home called Live à Paris. So as kids, we would listen to it all the time. And she was actually the first song that she was famous for, Porque tu m'aimes encore, right? It was in French to begin with, right? Exactly. So, I mean,
there's more emotion. There's also that thing when singers sing in a language that is not their language, it's more difficult to connect with the lyrics. And I think Céline Dion, I don't know everything about her songs, but what I feel is that when she sings in French, she conveys more emotion. There's
and
more
the subjects are very different, very different.
It's like the songs are marketed for the specific audience also.
Yeah, true.
Because when she sings in American, I know that she had to take accent reduction for classes.
Oh, she did? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. When she worked on her American accent to make a career, an international career, because in the beginning she's a French speaker, a Canadian French speaker.
Right.
So I feel that the music is made for the international audience, and the things she sings in French are made for the French audience, and
that makes sense.
They do not radiate the same thing.
It's like she's a totally different artist. That it was when I heard about it, when I heard the French songs, I'm like, oh my God, I was almost shocked, because it's like you say, it's very intense, deep, very emotional, and it actually comes in very well into my ear.
So that's a good motivation to sing and speak French.
I told you, my French is usually for taxi rides and things like that if I go to Paris. So
yeah,
that's as far as I go. Oh my God, it was amazing to get to know you better.
Oh gosh.
Yes, we're almost an hour.
We talked a lot.
It's just because there's so much that we could just keep on talking about, because this is like an endless subject for people like you and me who really just see the connection. I cannot disconnect music and my working languages. It's just the way it goes. I even have, like I always say, I have a secret sentence that I say if I haven't been speaking the English the whole day, and then all of a sudden I need to do it. Usually I use the same sentence. Do you have that? Do you have that little trick, a sentence that it's complicated to pronounce, that you say
yes,
to
like
yourself?
A tongue twister?
Yeah, not really a tongue twister that is official, but it's a Madonna sentence that she says in her first tour, right? And it's really complicated to pronunciate, and so well, I find it complicated. Maybe it's not, but it's she says, I was never elected a homecoming queen or anything, but I sure feel like one now, because she's back in her hometown, in Detroit. So that's why she says it. And I say it in different speeds, at different speeds. And it starts by going very slow, I was never elected. Yeah. And then at the end, I'll just so that's my practicing sentence.
Excellent practice. That's a good idea for my students.
That's my real trick. Yeah. Oh my God, this was amazing. I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. And who knows if I don't have to revamp. Well, I mean, not revamp, but bring my French into life.
Oh, with pleasure. With pleasure. It was really lovely, Rita. It was a pleasant conversation and full of surprises and direction.
Like I said, this is what happened when you don't really prepare. But at the same time, that's really the idea, is not to have something that, let's talk about this, and that, and that. It might happen, but it's not the case in our particular episode. So this was absolutely amazing. It was great to get to know you. And I will keep on following your posts and your content, because as you can see, it's something that it's absolutely relevant in my daily life too. So I totally will continue following. You're doing an amazing job, and I love hearing about these things that people do. People who work in languages have unbelievable backgrounds, and they do amazing things. And that's really the idea of the podcast, to talk about those, totally different backgrounds and all of those things that us language workers have. So thank you so much, and
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.